What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at the match between Leeds and Aston Villa, and we're going to discuss whether or not Jesse Marsch is the man to keep Leeds in the Premier League or if they are unfortunately on their way down. Now, Steven Gerrard, after a successful January transfer window, has a very strong Aston Villa side that's very attacking, and before we get into the tactics for both teams, check out both my books. They're online on Amazon, and there's links in the description below. And check out Keyframe. As always, I'm using it to make this video. Now let's get right into the video. So Leeds, in their build-up, they went with a back four and wide fullbacks in their first third of the field when they were in possession of the ball. Now, when they would enter their midfield third, we'd see their fullbacks come a bit more narrow and use minimum width, but because of the pressing of Aston Villa and their narrow front three, with then Coutinho dropping deeper to take away one of the holding midfielders, much like Liverpool might do, the wide fullbacks in the first third made it more difficult for Leeds to be pressed and gave them superiority over Aston Villa, as well as the narrow midfield three of Aston Villa couldn't stretch out into the wide area, so it gave them an option to progress. Also, for Leeds, creating some stability using the double pivot throughout all thirds of the field gave them versatility in their build-up to use different rotations, with their two holding midfielders dropping into deeper areas and giving them different dynamics in possession when they had the ball. So now, as we see when we move into the midfield third, we have a little bit more narrow fullbacks, now just staying on the inside corridor of the wide channel, and now we still have our two holding midfielders with a tendency to move towards the half space on one side. So as we see here, by moving to the half space, it may release a fullback to one side, or they can maintain their double pivot and try and overload the first or second line of pressure from Aston Villa to then create a free man to progress through. And the thing about Jesse Marsch is he's very vertically oriented when in possession, so they'd always look for the third line pass to then try and find one of the two holding midfielders on the ball facing forward and able to play forward. So now with our front three, we still see the same defensive dynamics as we saw in their first initial high block, but they typically press from out to in and try and use their cover shadows to block access to the fullbacks, while Coutinho maintains a deeper position, not quite in the midfield line to create a diamond in midfield. It's more of a 4-3-3, just with a false 9 in the defensive phase to then pick up the holding midfielders a little bit better. Now, moving into the deeper area, Aston Villa then switched more into a 4-5-1 with their wingers of Ollie Watkins or their inside forwards, and Coutinho, who then was playing in the false 9 or number 10 role in their high block and in their more 3/4 press or their mid block. Now he drops to the left hand side, creating a 4-5-1, giving them an easier time when shifting into the wide area to then take away the fullbacks of Leeds, who are creating the width throughout their team. And the thing about Leeds, now under Jesse Marsch, they play very narrow with a lot of players between the lines, so with the fullbacks creating the width, it's more important for the midfield to be able to shift into the wide area and cover this space. They also went with the 4-5-1 in their defensive phase because it blocks passes, third line passes from this Leeds setup very well. And now with the Leeds setup, we see our two central defenders, our fullbacks creating width, and then we're using minimum width on the weak side to then better prepare for transitions. We still have the base of our two holding midfielders to support the attack and get ready to counter press. But Aston Villa was very solid defensively and didn't give Leeds much room to then play, and with a lot of individual errors, especially coming late in the second half, Leeds weren't able to really get themselves back into the game. Now, it's important to note Aston Villa really looked dangerous in transitions, but from their build-up, they had some interesting ideas and concepts they were looking to exploit. They typically went with deep fullbacks, and their central defenders were split by their goalkeeper, with nothing new there, and then they went with three deeper holding midfielders as well. And then they went with three central midfielders that positioned themselves a little bit deeper. So this gave them strong access in the half space, especially in deeper areas, allowing these central midfielders to drop between central defenders and fullbacks releasing the fullbacks into higher areas. And it also made it harder for Leeds to press and use their 4-2-2-2 cover shadows to block inside passing options because of the diagonal aspects when the central midfielders would drop, and it would attract the Leeds press. It would attract the Leeds press high up the field and into wide, inefficient areas, which would then leave central areas ready to be exploited. So now in possession, we see our three central midfielders coming deeper and creating these diagonal passing options from the central defenders and into the wide central midfielders coming into deeper positions. So from here we see strong diagonal passes, and this is continued into the fullbacks who've now been released into wider areas. And now just off our screen here, we can't see it, but the fullback has been released higher up the field, so they have a strong diagonal structure that has a lot of diagonal passing options into each line of their build-up. Leeds tried to press this with a 4-2-2-2, staggering their two holding midfielders in deeper areas and trying to create access to these deeper central midfielders. Now Aston Villa, they were more dangerous in transitions and because of individual qualities, but when they were able to outstretch the Leeds defensive setup and exploit space, they became very dangerous. And even though they didn't have as much of the ball, especially in the second half, they were able to use it and create dangerous chances when they did have it. And that's where we're going to wrap up the analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.